So I've enjoyed the series. I've enjoyed the kind of dark edge it has all the way throughout.
I'm very glad. Yeah, we were a little. I think I was a little nervous about it, but the reaction's been great so far. So I'm pretty thankful for that.
And to go back earlier, where it all starts, why acting? What was it that drew you to the profession?
I think for me, I had a really tough time expressing myself as a kid, which kind of made me like a little awkward, honestly, which I still am. But definitely like when I was younger, I was pretty socially awkward. I didn't have that many friends, and I saw my older sister. She's like 3.5 years older than me. She started doing theater, like school theater, and also like the local playhouse theater. And she was also an athlete, and she just had all these friends. I tried soccer for a little bit, and I really loved the sport, but I wasn't very good at it. And then I saw that, the community that she formed through the plays, and I tried my hand at that, and it turns out I had just a knack for it. I booked like the lead role in the school play, and then I loved that, and I developed some friends from it, and got closer with some other people. And then I auditioned for the local playhouse, and I ended up booking like a lead role in that. And then I really started to really develop a community there. And it was a lot easier to express myself in a scene. I felt like I had all of those, whatever, those emotions or whatever, like the character needed to portray locked up inside, or I don't really know. And for some reason, when I got on stage and I had to like express it, it was so much easier to do it there, where I knew I had an excuse to do it, than anywhere in any other facet of my life. So for me, the huge draw was just the social aspect, the community that I formed, and the ability to express myself in a way that I couldn't really figure out how to do otherwise.
That's great. It's amazing that some people, especially people who feel a little, sometimes awkward or tough time expressing themselves, like I just did, find that release through acting. And I've heard that several times, and I'm like, it's almost therapeutic, it seems like.
Yeah, it's weirdly cathartic. And that's still like today. Like for even for Cruel Summer example, like there was a lot of stuff that probably some shit that I should see a therapist for. And some like unfigured out emotions and stuff like that. Once we get in there and there's these heavy scenes, it's weird. I get really nervous because I worry that I can't do it. But then we get on set and just something taps in, and it's like, oh, here's a place where I can release all of this. And
Yeah,
now,
you're doing a great job.
thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. I get a little nervous in the drama space, but
So I looked at your filmography and I was surprised, just, for like, was it 10 years now you've been working? And it seems pretty consistently. You got a nice filmography.
yeah, it's almost over. I mean, I think it's over a decade now. I think I got my first job, which was Just Go With It with Adam Sandler, when I was 9, and now I'm 22 turning 23. So it's been 13 and a half years.
It's impressive.
More than half.
I try to use my memory there.
Got to do some quick math.
I didn't have enough fingers, so I'm like, a decade.
Yeah. It's more than this.
Yeah. After that, I just say a decade or more.
Yeah, a decade or more.
I cut myself off. So then you fast forward to now, or well, to the last couple of years with Cruel Summer. Were you a fan of the first season, or did you learn about it as this opportunity came to you?
I'd heard of it before, but if I'm being honest, I think I've said this before, but Cruel Summer was never the kind of show that I tend to watch. I tend to watch a lot, like in my free time, a lot of comedies and sitcoms and just half-hour stuff. I've got enough drama in my life that like TV I usually use as like an escape, and I just want to laugh. Mm-hmm. But once I booked the role, and I was deep in the audition process. I went back and I watched the first season. Luckily, I had a friend in the first season, Kiara Aurelia, who plays Jeanette Turner, and
oh, wow.
I had to give her a call after I watched it and be like, I'm so sorry it took me so long to watch it, because you actually really did phenomenally, and it's actually a really good show.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and especially when you get toward the end, and I mean the very, very end. I swear, not exaggerating. My daughters, I watched it with them. their jaws dropped. I think my jaw dropped as well. I looked around and everyone's like, what? And that was it. Goes to credits. Like, what a way to end a series. What a great exclamation point on an already fun ride.
I completely agree. That was my same reaction.
And the thing is though, like I'm not far enough to know exactly how this one turns out, but I'm like, okay, what do they have in store? And we get into episode 7, and a lot of big reveals are starting to happen. But let's go actually early on for anybody who hasn't watched. Spoiler alert: Luke dies. That's Griffin's character. He's dead. It happens. So I'm sorry if I ruined the first 40 minutes for you, but everything starts there.
R.I.P. Luke.
Is this yes? Is maybe I'll cut that. Is this a first for you to have a character that dies so early in the season or a film?
Yeah. So early for sure. I think I've done roles where I've died before. I've done actually 2 other projects where my character has died. I don't know what it is about me that's that casting agents see. It's like, oh, this kid looks like he could die. So I'll take it as a compliment, I guess. It's keeping me busy. But yeah, this is definitely the first time it's happened so early on in the story. But that's the cool thing about this show, is that it happens early on in the show, but technically it doesn't really happen. I'm in every episode following that because of all the flashbacks and stuff. So we know my character's fate, but we don't know how he gets there. And I think that's what makes the show enticing.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's working in reverse. So
Exactly.
we're hearing, it's like Memento kind of. You're finding out the details and like, wait a second, this now makes sense. Episode 2, that reference here. Oh, that's how that fits in. Because
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's one you have to pay attention to, with the 3 different timelines, and with it working in reverse, and with so much of it being a mystery. It's like it's attention TV, not phone TV.
Yeah, it was really tough. I had to, when I was watching the first season, if I got on my phone for like 10 seconds to check a text or an Instagram, I'd be, oh shoot, now I got to rewind like 30 seconds and fully pay attention. Because if you miss one detail, it could change everything for you for the rest of the season.
How much did you know early on, and how much did your co-stars know?
We all kind of basically knew nothing. I knew my character died, and everyone else knew my character died. But that was basically all we knew. You know, when we signed on to the show, we got a very loose description of what would go on and what would proceed. But then, you know, the EPs and the writers would try to tell us about as little as possible. They tried to tell us as much as our characters needed to know, because they didn't want us, you know, according to them, they didn't want us changing our performances to follow some hints, you know. Like if someone knew that they had done it or done something, that would change their entire performance, which would then get rid of some of the suspense that they were trying to build, you know. Like the whole reason the show works is because everyone's acting as if they had nothing to do with it. And the reason that everyone's acting like they had nothing to do with it is because we all thought, you know, oh, it's not me, you know, I had nothing to do with it. It's not me at the end of the day. I'm trying to prove my innocence. So it kind of draws the attention away from you by doing that. And we kept telling them, just tell us, we're actors. If you tell us not to, you know, to add any hints or anything, we won't add any hints. We won't change our performances. But I think it was, you know, that was the way they did it. And it turned out fine. It was a little frustrating as an actor, but I think the end product justified the means.
Yeah, we'll act like we don't know.
Exactly.
You know, have faith in us.
Have faith in us.
But when we get into episode 7, there's some reveals about who Luke is, and kind of alters some of the characters' take on him, but also the viewers' take on him. What do you see him as? Is he a good guy? Is he someone you'd hang out with?
I think so. I think he's the kind of guy I would share a beer with for sure. But yeah, you know, I had that whole like internal conflict while we were shooting this. I was like, do I even like this character? Do I like Luke? And at the end of the day, you have to be your character's own biggest advocate, because that's what they would be. You know, they're trying to prove that they're a good person. Everyone wants to be a good person. So the whole thing with Luke is I just think he's really confused and young and naive. And like to go back to what I was saying about like it was really cathartic to play a lot of these scenes because I got to revisit some of those emotions that I felt when I was younger and that maybe I never fully got to express. I felt that way with Luke because I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger. I think everyone does, everyone makes stupid mistakes and they have to learn from them. They have to have consequences. And that doesn't make them a bad person for making those mistakes. You make your mistakes, but your mistakes don't make you. And it was just it was definitely a conflict internally because I knew what he did wasn't great, but at the end of the day, I don't think that made him a bad person. You look into his history, you see a lot more in episodes 8 and 9. You go into kind of his past and you figure out why he is the way he is, why he ticks the way he ticks. And it kind of paints this broader picture of, is he a bad person or is he just really like confused and lost and trying to find who he is? And I think that if he didn't meet such an untimely fate, he would have learned from his consequences. He would have learned from his mistakes. And I don't think he would ever make those mistakes again. Just like I don't make the same mistakes I made when I was 16, 17, So it's tricky, what he did wasn't great, doesn't paint him in the best light, but do I think he's a bad person? No, I think he's just growing up and his time got cut short.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy. He just seems like you said, it's a kid being a kid. And
Exactly.
sometimes you look back and like you said, everyone does. You look back and you have those regrets. And his regrets aren't the worst, it's like at least what I've seen so far. But overall, I mean, on the outside, if that was someone my daughter brought home, I'd go, oh yeah, seems like, Luke's good. Go ahead, have a nice time. And then I'd watch the show and go, oh, damn it, Luke.
Yeah.
Stay away from my daughter.
Exactly.
So how long and where was the shoot located?
We shot for like 6 months in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice part of the world.
It was beautiful. I love Vancouver. I love Canada. Shoot a lot in Canada. I've shot more in Canada over the last 3 years than I have in the States in the last 5 years.
When I was your age, I was waiting tables and that was my summer. And I'm looking at your summer and you're at a lake with friends, beach and swimming and beer pong. Is it as fun as it looks on set?
Yes and no. The funny answer is no. But realistically, it is a solid mix of the two. We luckily had a great cast and everyone got along and, there were never any big issues between anyone. So it just kind of felt like we were hanging out, especially when we had those long days and, we would sit while someone else was doing their scene and we just had to wait basically. It was always good energy, good vibes. Everyone's just having fun. But at the end of the day, it's a really difficult show to shoot, and it requires everyone in the cast to go to some really uncomfortable places. So as much as it was fun and games, it was really serious at the same time. And it was like someone has a really serious scene, which was a lot of the days, you're trying your hardest not to get them out of their zone in between takes and in between scenes. So you can't always just be like, hey, haha, like goofing around with each other. You have to kind of like respect each other's like mental states and that you're trying to stay in this like messed up place, which isn't always fun, but it's work,
How are you at beer pong after this?
I've always been good at beer pong.
Since you're a kid?
Since I was a little boy, since I was a child. I remember my first beer pong game. My sister threw a party and I think I had just done Just Go With It at this point. I was like 10 or 11 years old and she was I must have been older, like 12, 13, 14. But she threw a big party at the house and it kind of got out of control. It got a little too big. And she asked me to come downstairs in my like most childish pajamas, looking real tired, to get like a glass of water and then yawn and go back to bed so that people would feel bad and maybe like be like, oh, we got to keep it down, or like maybe we should head out. And I did that. I came downstairs in my pajamas, like 14, 15. And everyone just goes, yo, little Gluck is here. Celeb shot. And then they had me join the game of beer pong. I mean, I wasn't drinking,
Oh, good.
But they did ask me to join, and I remember hitting my shot and being like, I feel like the man right now. It had the complete opposite effect my sister wanted.
I was joking, and it was actually real. You were, as
Oh
a
no,
child, you earned those skills.
I earned those skills. Yeah, that's what happens when you have a sister that's about 4 years older than you. She corrupts you. She teaches you beer
Yeah.
pong.
I think the lesson or the message here is, if anyone ever has a party and it gets out of hand, realize that no one at that party, especially if they've been drinking, is saying, let's do the right thing. If the
Yeah,
party's going and it's good, it's going to continue. So
it's gonna keep
don't,
going.
yeah, don't subject your brother to it, or sister.
No, yeah.
But now you look at this role, and you did the Tall Girl films, and they're kind of a much different level. This is a much more mature role for you. What has it been like taking on this role? I know you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but what's it like taking on this role? And then what has the reaction been for family and friends?
It's tricky, I've known that I can do drama. I started off doing, like, theater and stuff, which had a little bit of drama in it. And my first job was a comedy, but then, like, my next two jobs after that were dramas. When I was way younger, and I know that I can do it. I find a little less joy in it. I've always preferred doing comedies. But with comedies, like I said, it's nice to be able to express all of those emotions and use set and work as a way to release those things. So for these dramas, it was nice to kind of let that side of me out and try to explore the drama space. It's kind of a more difficult and uncomfortable space for me. So I was and still am really nervous on how people view the performance, because I wanted to do my best job, and I tried to do my best job, but I've never seen myself as the dramatic type. I very much like having a mix of comedy and drama, a little bit of one and the other in the same thing. And this one was just straight drama, which was an uncomfortable place for me to be. But at the same time, it was really refreshing to try and, like, work those muscles and see if I could still do it and challenge myself and push myself to get to those places. But it's just a lot more vulnerable, I think, is the issue. Being an actor is already really vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there. You have to try and kind of make a fool out of yourself for other people's entertainment. And this was a way more vulnerable place to do it. I've always been comfortable making a fool out of myself.
Mhm.
But it's just a lot more vulnerable. And along with that, like, there's a lot of, like, mature scenes with, like, making out, and it's kind of like some simulated sex and stuff, which is an area I've never explored before. So all of it was just a challenge for myself, pushing myself to kind of get into those vulnerable places and explore those.
As an actor, of course, you want to share this, and you're hoping that you hope people enjoy the show or enjoy your work. So what has that reaction been like?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be a little, not, I wouldn't say careful is the right word, but I have to choose who I show it to, because, again, it's all about the demographic. Uh, like I said, with Cruel Summer season 1, it wouldn't necessarily be a show that I would turn to and be like, this is what I want to watch right now, to watch, like, a teen drama. I think a lot of my friends who are the same age, 22, 23, who are guys, their main shows that they watch are also not teen dramas, right? So I show it to them, and some of them kind of maybe don't understand it. Then I show it to my actor friends, and they're like, oh, I love this, and then, I see what you did here, and this is really cool. And then I show it to my parents, who are a bit older, and they're like, I don't get it. I don't fully understand the whole show. I'm like, all right. It's all about who I show it to. And I absolutely recognize that. I'm not expecting, I would be worried if my guy friends who are like 22, 23 in college, who just like beer and drinking and sports and stuff, were like, oh man, this is great. I'd be like, you're lying, dude. I know you don't watch stuff like this. You don't, this isn't your go-to. But that being said, it's been a really positive reaction. I've showed it to a lot of people in the industry, friends of mine who like teen dramas, and those who were fans of the first season and who just like teen dramas in general. They were fans of it. there definitely were some moments where they would poke some fun at me for sure. Being like, "Ooh, you're naked," and like, "Oh, you're kissing a girl," and stuff. And definitely the sex tape got a lot of my friends laughing, kind of poking fun at me, which isn't always the reaction you want to see with a drama. But they seemed entertained at the very least. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what I'm trying to do as an actor, is entertain people.
Well, it's
So
not a spot that you typically put yourself in. So, your friends' reactions to this are definitely kind of warranted.
yeah,
You hope your friend isn't involved in a scandal like that.
yeah, exactly.
So, getting into the whole love triangle aspect, you have Sadie Stanley and Lexi Underwood. Love triangle with your character. It must be a real tough job. Um, Seriously, how awkward or how awesome is this part of the job? Because it's not, this isn't a true love triangle. This isn't anything, realistic. This is acting. So what is it like to create that?
I think I can speak for most actors in the industry. Probably not all of them. I don't want to speak for everyone, but most people tend to agree with me on this. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any secret. I don't think it's anything wrong to say that like kissing and making out is fun, especially, I mean, I've told Sadie and Lexi both this. It's like, you guys are beautiful, and like, that's awesome. That's great for you and stuff. And like this part of the job, it seems like it should be a lot more exciting than it is. But once you get to set, imagine making out with somebody and having 50 people stare and like watch you intensely as you do it. And then give you notes like maybe a little less tongue on this one, or like maybe a little more tongue on this one. Can you do something with your arms? Maybe like you guys are like, maybe like you get on top and like you're doing the thrusting. You're like, this just feels weird. Like it feels uncomfortable. And the only way to get through it is talking it through with the other person, being like, this is a job. This is, we're getting paid to do this. Whether or not we like it is kind of inconsequential. At the end of the day, we have to make it look like we like it. We have to make it convincing, and we just have to make sure that everyone here is comfortable with what we're doing. And then especially after like the first couple times, it gets very normalized. And then you kind of get into this groove where you're like, okay, well, this is really not a big deal anymore. And now my job is going in and making out, which like doesn't really matter who it's with, is usually a fun thing to do.
Yeah, it's got to be weird too. Is like when this all finishes up, you've had this also they're acting, but these intimate moments with Sadie and Lexi, and then you have to go back into just like, okay, we're just colleagues, workers again, just sharing the same project. What is it like working with them as a whole?
Pretty great. Yeah, pretty much what you see on screen, which is I think why we got cast. The chemistry was just kind of naturally there. We became friends really, really quickly. And I think one of the nicest compliments I think I've ever gotten, I called my mom and told her that I got this compliment after like literally an hour after Sadie and Lexi gave it to me. But we were hanging out and they told me that they felt safe around me. And I was like, that's maybe one of the most amazing things that I could hear. So having that barrier kind of broken down, where it's like, we all know what we're doing here. There's no judgment. There's no awkwardness. There's no weirdness between us. It might be like a little funny getting over the jitters of like, okay, this is what we have to do at first. Then you get over it. And then it just kind of becomes like part of the job. And then after that, you go back to hanging as if it never happened, because you recognize that it is just part of the job. And it doesn't have to get in any way of like your personal relationships with one another. So we would kick it and we would have fun. We were all of legal drinking age in Vancouver, because the drinking age is like 19. I think Lexi was 19 when we were shooting. So we'd go out and like we'd have a drink, we'd hang out, we'd watch TV, we would just do like normal hanging out stuff. And the chemistry was great. It was just fun. It's definitely a lot more offset.
that safeness they feel with you definitely has to be beneficial to your performance as well, to go in and to be able to really focus on creating this character instead of, you know, you didn't hit it off, if you guys are butting heads or they didn't have that feeling around you, then could you really do your job properly?
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah. I mean, that's the best part about feeling comfortable with someone on set. When you have a good scene partner, someone that you can trust, it makes things so much easier. Because then not only that, but you can rely on them to, if you're not really feeling it during a scene, you can try something weird and know that you're gonna not face any judgment for it. You know, make a strange choice or try something harder. Or if you're still not getting it, they can try and pick up the slack and help you out. And you can rely on them to do that, and they can rely on you to, you know, to feed off of that energy. It's just great. It's like it's the best way to have a work environment, especially as an actor.
And it shows up on screen, so that's always good.
That's what we're going for.
Yeah. All right. So just a couple more questions. You raise the bar. What do we have coming for the rest of the season without spoiling? You know, what are you excited for fans to see?
You know, I think I'm excited to just see people's shifts week to week on like how they feel about the characters, because episode 7 is where the stakes, I think, get the highest. And then episode 8 shows a lot more of what happens with episode 7. You know, the night Luke dies. But there's a lot of misleads. I mean, you see basically what's going on in episode 8. There's 2 more episodes after that. So what could there be, you know? And what I like about the show is they do a really good job of painting people in a certain light, only to show other evidence that makes you think of them in a completely different way that could explain or excuse certain actions before. So I don't think this is really spoilery at all, but episode 9 is you know, the producers called it Luke's episode, because it's a lot of Luke, and not only Luke in the current timeline, but Luke in the past timelines and Luke even before the past timelines. And we kind of break the 3 timeline rule for episode 9. And we dive into his childhood and his upbringing and what it was like growing up in with his family and his house. And I think that's really, I find that really, really interesting, especially as an advocate for Luke. You know, I want people to see that, and I want to see what their reactions are, how they feel about him after that episode. Episode 9 is great. And then episode 10 is obviously the penultimate episode, and you see all of the stuff breaks down in episode 10.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait. Unfortunately, they only sent me up to 7. I'm like, you can't, you know, lead us up there, and then it's like the bridge is closed essentially. You know, it's like, no, I want to get over to that bridge and see more.
I've only seen up to episode. They only sent me episodes 1 through 7, and then I had to beg to see episode 9, because I was like, come on, it's my episode. Like, let me check it out a little bit.
Let's close on this one. 3 words to describe Luke.
That's always a tough one. I always blank whenever it's like only 3 words.
You can use a phrase or individual words.
Cool. All right, then I'm gonna say he'sn't, which is an abbreviation of he is not. He'sn't his mistakes.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
He's not his mistakes.
Touches upon a lot of what you already discussed. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you so much for your time. I had a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing how it turns out.
Appreciate you so much, Steven. It's fun talking to you.
Have a good one.